part of a project run by SIP2 and the National College of Art and Design, Anne Casson has been to meet some men and women who've come together now to revisit that story in the form of a magnificent tapestry.
The whole aim was to involve other people in this, and in this process explore their own past and what happened at the time. And right from the start it was going to be a narrative. We felt it had to be a narrative, that we'd do them as a graphic novel in blocks of 3 or 4, and they'd tell the story.
These are the best dressed factory workers I've ever seen.
The tapestry was designed by artists Cathy Henderson and Robert Balla.
Pádraig attempted to do a kind of reduced version of the story, and then Cathy and myself went off to do the images to suit that narrative, which we then handed over in terms of full-size drawings to the volunteers.
And the volunteers include members of the Patchwork Society, the Embroidery Guild, the ICA, prisoners and other community groups in Dublin, Limerick, Waterford and Galway.
I see the ladies are working very hard here, Mary.
Thank you,
You've done a lot of work on this panel. Where is it in the overall tapestry? Where does it come?
It's the main panel in the overall scheme. It's the only one that's round, and the rest of them are all oblong or square and quite small. Larkin's figure was taken back in 1923, I think, and he has his wonderful Dublin behind him.
The work involved in the preparation of this panel, I know you've been working on it for over a year.
Since June, 12 months ago. Every Tuesday morning, the 5 of us, for hours on end. And we enjoyed it no end. We loved coming in, loved sewing.
And who's done the suit, his clothing?
I dressed him. After much deliberation, we had him dressed in all sorts of different colour browns, but the committee had to, we'd dress him and the committee would have to check. No, they wouldn't like it. So between the jigs and the reels, we ended up with just plain brown.
And the work on his face is incredibly delicate and intricate.
Absolutely brilliant. I was dreading the thought of who was going to ask who to do the face, but Bernie was wonderful. Bernie did his face and his hands.
Ina, you completed this panel today and brought it in today?
Today, delivered today.
And tell me a little bit about the James Connolly figure and why you were given this image.
Well, I choose to do this one. I just liked it. I love James Connolly, and this is little Alice Brady's funeral. She was shot and she died. And James Connolly did the narration at her funeral, so hence.
And are you delighted with your work? Are you proud of it?
Very, very proud of it, yeah. Very proud to be part of the project. Like, it's a super bit of history. Really proud.
Valerie, what element of the 1913 lockout does your panel represent?
Well, it represents the Jacobs, the problem that these ladies had when they wore the badges which were supporting the strikers, and when they wore the badges into work, they were fired. There's going to be a text, we'll say.
Yes. OK.
These ladies, the same day the disturbances began outside Jacobs' biscuit factory, as women workers wearing the red hand badges of the ITGWU are turned away.
OK. And may I ask, what does this represent?
I haven't seen these. These, we thought they were biscuits, but apparently they should be biscuits. But apparently they're little medallions little medallions, and I think they're being done by the rehab.
We're doing certain discs that are going into that panel, and there are different pictures of different things, different symbols and stuff of the time.
Down the road in Dublin 8, we met some members of RAID, Recovery Through Arts, Drama and Education.
Well, before the unions came in and told us about it, I didn't really know anything about the history of the lockout. And so we really got interested in it. And we done all our research, Googling all the history about it, and came up with drawings of our own ideas of what we would like to do around the lockout.
My one is of the children during the lockout. There was women and that would give out soup and that to children. So I've got a woman outside. This is like Liberty Hall. I'm starting just the wall and a bit of the window to do, and she's giving soup out to the children, you know. I just made up out of my head and just started sewing it, you know.
And it's in Liberty Hall that the completed panels are currently stored for safekeeping.
This one shows Larkin in prison in October 1913. There'll be a panel here with narrative on it explaining what's involved. This one now, this is one of the early panels. It shows Lord Aberdeen and his wife arriving at the Dublin Horse Show. It's based on a real photograph from the period. This is the badge of the Union at the time, the third quarter of 1913, so that's hence the 3. This is the food kitchen, which was in Liberty Hall, the basement of the old Liberty Hall on this site, and this was made with wool. It's a bit different from the others. All the techniques are varied, but again, it shows people being fed in Liberty Hall. This one is Larkin at the Asquith Tribunal in Dublin Castle giving evidence on behalf of the trade union movement, and that was a phrase he used at the time, Christ will not be crucified in Dublin.
This is a really interesting panel. In fact, it's the final panel in the piece, and the idea behind it is to create a kind of connection in the narrative, because the very first panel shows Larkin and a few of his comrades, and they're founding the Union, and they have just a little candle on the table. So the idea was that from that little spark, you know, the flame of justice and of hope had been lit and would not be extinguished. Because even though the workers were forced to go back to work, and in many ways that was seen as a defeat, within a very short period of time the Transport Union had over 100,000 members. So that's the idea behind this. And we got school children to embroider all these little panels, which are all joined together to create a fitting end to the whole narrative.
The whole group has really stepped up to the challenge, you know, and but we'll be recognised by the whole country when the time comes to exhibit and all, you know, so it's really something to look forward to.
Like, it's all part of who I am and who all of us are as Irish people.